My name is Ayesha Malik, and I'm 32, and before you judge me for what I did next, listen properly, because if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, you'll understand why my hands were shaking that day. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. The kind of day where your biggest worry is whether the milk at home has expired. I was standing outside a glass building in the city center, staring at my reflection in the door like I didn't recognize myself. Inside that building, a man in a gray suit had just pushed a folder towards me and said, calmly, like he was discussing the weather, "Mrs. Malik, you've inherited $26 million. I actually laughed. A small, stupid laugh. Because my life didn't come with miracles. It came with overdue bills, silent dinners, and a husband who loved his phone more than my face. The Lord Mr. Hargreaves didn't smile. He slid forward the documents again. Your biological grandmother established a trust. It matured when you turned 30. The funds have been waiting. Biological grandmother. That phrase hit me harder than the number. Nia died when I was 13. But Mr. Hargreaves didn't mean her. He meant someone else. Someone I didn't even know existed. I walked out of the office holding a folder that suddenly weighed more than my entire past. If you're still with me, subscribe, because this story only gets messier from here. And I promise you, the twist isn't what you think. I called my husband Billo. Before I even reached my car, he answered on the third ring, annoyed. What is it, Ayesha? I'm in a meeting. I inherited money, I whispered, like saying it out loud might make it disappear. A lot of money. There was a pause. Then his voice softened in a way I hadn't heard in months. How much? 26 million? Another pause. Then, where are you? Don't go anywhere. I'm coming. That should have felt romantic, like he cared. But it didn't. It felt like someone had switched him on. I sat in my car, trying to breathe. My palms were damp on the steering wheel. My heart was sprinting, but my body felt frozen. A tiny part of me, the part that had survived everything, kept whispering, don't celebrate yet. Life doesn't give you gifts without collecting a price. Billo called again. I'm sending you a location. Don't drive home. Meet me. Why? Just do it, Ayesha, for once. Listen. That for once stung, like I was always the problem, like I was the difficult one. Still, I agreed, because when you've spent years trying to keep a marriage alive, you learn to swallow your instincts. I started the engine and pulled onto the road. The city looked normal. People crossing streets, a boy selling balloons, a woman arguing on her phone. Life moving like nothing had happened, like my entire world hadn't just cracked open. 5 minutes into the drive, my phone buzzed with Bilal's location. A hotel, not a cafe, not home, a hotel. My chest tightened. I told myself not to overthink. Maybe he wanted privacy. Maybe he was planning some surprise. But the road dipped under a bridge, and my car suddenly shuddered like it had swallowed a stone. Pressed the brake. Nothing. I pressed harder. Still nothing. My foot slammed down, panic rising like fire up my throat. The car kept moving, faster now, rolling downhill. My hands clenched the wheels so hard my knuckles turned white. Nitrogen oxide, nitrogen oxide. I pumped the brake. I tried the handbrake. My tires screamed against the road as I swerved, trying to avoid the traffic ahead. A lorry's horn blared. Everything went slow, like time stretched just to watch me suffer. The last thing I remember clearly was the flash of metal and the violent jolt as the world folded in on itself. Then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, my mouth tasted like blood and burnt air. A beeping sound hovered somewhere near my ear. My body felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. A nurse's face appeared above me. You're awake. Thank God. Don't move. I blinked, trying to focus. Where am I? Hospital. You were in a crash. The word crash made my stomach twist. Images flickered. The brake not working. The horn. The impact. My husband, I croaked. Billa, is he here? The nurse hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I'll call him, she said, too quickly, and left. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I was alive. My chest hurt when I breathed. My arm was bandaged. I could feel bruises blooming under my skin like storm clouds. But I was alive. And I suddenly knew in my bones that the crash wasn't an accident. Because right before the impact, I had noticed something odd. The brake pedal had felt wronged even before it failed. like it had been tampered with, like someone had been inside my car. Hours passed. No Bilal. Then, close to evening, the door opened and I expected Bahalel. Instead, a woman walked in. She was tall, perfectly dressed, hair styled like she'd stepped out of a salon 5 minutes ago. A gold bracelet hugged her wrist. Her lipstick was fresh, not smudged by tears or worry. She looked at me really, and her face changed, her eyes widened, her mouth fell open, and then she did something that made my blood run cold. She screamed, not a polite gasp, not shock, a scream like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh my God!" she shouted, stumbling backwards. You're supposed to be dead." The room spun. My throat tightened. "Who are you?" She stared at me like I was a mistake that refused to disappear. Then, behind her, the door opened again, and Billo walked in. He froze when he saw her. Then he looked at me, and for the first time in our entire marriage, my husband looked afraid. "If you're still here, subscribe," because what happened next made me realize my inheritance wasn't a blessing, it was a target, and I was standing right in the middle of everyone's hunger. Billo didn't speak at first. He just stood there, eyes darting between me and the woman like his brain was trying to rewrite reality. The woman's scream echoed in my head. "You're supposed to be dead." I swallowed, forcing my voice to work. "Billo, who is she?" His jaw tightened. "Ayesha, you're tired, you're confused." "No," I snapped. Even speaking hurt, but anger gave me strength. "Answer me." The woman looked like she wanted to run, but she didn't. She clutched her handbag like it was armor. Billo stepped forward. "This is Sana." "Sana," I repeated slowly. "And why is Sana screaming that I'm supposed to be dead?" Billo's eyes flashed. "Stop dramatics, Sana," whispered Billo. "You told me it was done." My heart dropped into my stomach. Told me it was done. The nurse returned at that moment, and Sana practically sprinted out as if she'd been burned. Billo leaned in close, voice low. "Not here. We'll talk later." But later is where liars hide, so I said the one thing he didn't expect. "Call Mr. Hargreaves." Bill blinked. "What? The lawyer? The inheritance lawyer?" My voice was steady now. "Call him. Put him on speaker. Right now." Bill laughed sharp, forced. "Ayesha, you've had an accident. You need rest." And that's when my mind snapped back 21 years. Back to the first time someone told me I didn't deserve safety. I was 11 the day my mum kicked me out. It wasn't dramatic like movies. No storm outside, no suitcase. Just a quiet, cold evening where the walls felt like they were listening. Mum stood by the door with her arms crossed. Her face looked carved out of stone. "You're not my problem anymore," she said. I remember staring at her, waiting for the joke, waiting for her to soften, but she didn't. "Mom, please," I whispered. "Where will I go?" She opened the door wider like she couldn't wait for the air to push me out. "You'll figure it out. You'll always do." I stepped onto the porch in my school uniform. No coat, no money, just the weight of being unwanted. The door closed, and that sound wood against wood became the soundtrack of my childhood. I slept behind a neighbor's shed that night. The neighbor, Auntie Shazia, found me in the morning and cried like she was the mother I didn't get. Social services got involved. Mum told everyone I was difficult and rebellious, that I ran away. But I didn't run. I was discarded. For years, I lived with different relatives. I learned early how to make myself small, useful, quiet. I learned that love, in some houses, wasn't given, it was traded for obedience. And I promised myself, when I grow up, I will build a life where nobody can throw me out. That promise is what made me work like my life depended on it, 'cause it did. I studied, I took scholarships, I worked part-time jobs. I saved every coin like it was a life raft. By 25, I had a decent job in admin at a logistics company, not glamorous, but stable. That's where I met Bilal. He was charming in that smooth way some men are like. They know exactly what to say to make you feel chosen. He'd bring me tea. He'd remember small details. He'd look at me like I mattered. For someone who grew up being treated like a burden, that look is dangerous. We married within a year. At first, he was kind, or maybe he was acting. The slow shift happened quietly. Little criticisms disguised as jokes, small rules disguised as care. "Don't wear that. People will stare. Why do you talk like that?" Sounds cheap. You don't need friends. You've got me. Then the coldness came. The distance. The constant scrolling. The I'm busy. And yet I stayed. Because the child in me still believed abandonment was my fault. Until the inheritance. Back in the hospital. Bilal's face was tight with control. I stared at him and realized something terrifying when Mani entered the room. His love left. I pressed the call button, but doctor came in instead of a nurse, checking my vitals. Bilal forced a smile like the perfect husband. As soon as the doctor left, I whispered, I remember everything. Bilal's smile vanished. What are you talking about? The brakes, I swallowed. They didn't fail naturally. His eyes hardened. You're paranoid. And that's when Mr. Hargreaves walked in because I had already messaged him from my phone while Bilal was outside earlier. Mr. Hargreaves stood with a folder under his arm, calm as a man who's seen too much greed to be surprised. Mrs. Mellick, he said, nodding politely. Bafta stiffened. Why is he here? I watched my husband's face carefully and said, Tell him about Sana. Mr. Hargreaves frowned. Sana. Bilal's eyes widened a fraction. Who told you that name? Mr. Hargreaves opened his folder. Mr. Malek, before you say anything, you should know something. We've had irregularities. My pulse hammered. What irregularities? He took a breath. Someone tried to access the trust early. Someone submitted documents claiming you were deceased. Silence. The air went cold. I looked at Bilal. You tried to declare me dead. Bilal's voice came out low and furious. You don't understand what you're playing with. Mr. Hargreaves continued. And there's more. The trust wasn't just set up by a grandmother. It was set up by a woman named Farah Siddiqui. The name landed in me like a stone. I had never heard it. Mr. Hargreaves looked straight at me. Mrs. Malik Farah Siddiqui is listed as your biological mother. My world tilted. My mother, I whispered. Then who? Mr. Hargreaves didn't answer. He didn't need to, because suddenly my mom's face at the door when I was 11 made sense. Like she wasn't throwing out her daughter, like she was throwing out someone else's secret. If you want the full truth, subscribe, because the next part is where I finally understood why my husband locked that car door at Grandma's birthday, and why he thought he could control my life with one simple click. 2 weeks later, I was discharged. Bruised ribs, a stitched cut above my eyebrow, my arm still wrapped, but I was walking, talking, and very, very awake. Bilal acted like the perfect husband again. He cooked once. He asked if I needed water. He even held my hand in front of the neighbors, but his eyes never softened. They watched me like I was a safe with a code he needed. Mr. Hargreaves visited me at home with updates. The police had been notified about the attempted fraud. The car was being inspected for tampering, and the trust, because of security concerns, would only be released when my identity and safety were fully confirmed, meaning Bilal couldn't touch it yet, and that made him desperate. One evening, he came home unusually cheerful. Get dressed, he said. We're going to Grandma's birthday. I paused. Your grandma? Yes, he said quickly. Everyone will be there. It'll be good for you. Fresh air. I didn't want to go. Something in my chest tightened, but then words echoed. Farah Siddiqui is your biological mother. If Farah was my real mom, then my childhood wasn't just abandonment. It was a lie. So I agreed because I needed answers. And sometimes you have to walk into the trap to see who's holding the rope. We drove in Bilal's car. This time, I watched his hands on the wheel, calm, controlled. The house was a large bungalow in a posh neighborhood, too posh for Bilal's family history, if I'm honest. His grandma lived like someone who'd always had money. Inside, the living room was full. Cousins, aunties, loud laughter, the smell of biryani, and then I saw her. A woman sitting in the corner, elegant, older, but with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Bilal leaned towards me. That's Grandma. Go greet her. I walked over. She looked up slowly, and the moment our eyes met, her face changed, not with joy, but with recognition, like she'd been waiting. You, she said softly. Hello, Auntie. Her lips pressed together. Not Auntie. She glanced at Bilal, then back at me. Said I sat. She studied my face, like she was reading a document. Then she asked, do you know who you are? My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Before I could answer, Bilal came over. with forced brightness. Grandma, don't stress her, she's still recovering. The woman's eyes narrowed. Recovering. Yes. Her gaze flicked to my stitched eyebrow. From an accident. Billow's smile twitched. I looked at her. Who are you? She exhaled. My name is Razia. Mr. Hargreaves had mentioned Pharasitiqui as my biological mother. But Razia, this woman, felt like she knew too much. Razia continued quietly. Farah was my daughter. My breath caught. She gave birth to you, Razia said, voice tight. And then she died. The room blurred. Bilal quickly said, Grandma, enough. Razia's eyes hardened. You have no right to silence me. I stood up on shaking legs. Why didn't I know any of this? Razia looked pained. Because the woman who raised you took money to disappear. My hands clenched into fists. My mum, Razia, nodded. She wasn't your mother. She was your keeper. Paid to keep you hidden. My stomach turned. All those years. The door closing. The coldness. It wasn't just cruelty, it was a transaction. Billow stepped closer. Voice low. Ayesha, you're making a scene. I turned to him. You knew. His eyes flashed. I knew enough. And that's when I noticed something. Sana was there. Standing near the hallway, watching me with that same terrified expression she had in the hospital. Our eyes met, and she went pale. Razia followed my gaze. Who is that? Billow said quickly. Just a friend of the family. Sana's mouth opened like she wanted to speak, but Billow's stare shut her up. My chest tightened. I leaned closer to Sana and whispered, Why did you say I was supposed to be dead? Sana's hands trembled. Because he said the crash worked. My blood went cold. I turned to Billow, fury roaring through me, but before I could speak, Billow grabbed my arm hard and said through his teeth, Come outside now. People were laughing in the next room, unaware of the storm building in the hallway. Bilal pulled me towards the front door. I tried to yank away. He tightened his grip, smiling at guests as we passed like we were a perfect couple. Outside, he marched me to the car. Get in, he said. No. His voice dropped. Ayesha, don't be stupid. He pushed me into the passenger seat, then walked around and got in the driver's side. I reached for the door handle to get out. Click. The locks dropped. I tried again. Locked. I stared at him. Unlock it. He didn't. He pulled out a document folder from under his seat. Sign, he said, shoving it towards me. Sign the transfer. Put the trust in my name. My heart pounded. Are you insane? He leaned closer, eyes cold. You don't understand how this works. That money isn't yours. It's a legacy. It belongs with my family. With your family? I laughed, bitter. You tried to kill me for it. He didn't deny it. He just said, I didn't plan for you to survive. My hands went numb. He continued, calm as a man ordering tea. Sign the papers, and you walk away alive. You refuse, and you'll have another accident. A scream rose in my throat, but I swallowed it. Because fear makes you loud and loud. People get hurt, so I forced myself to breathe. Then, I said softly, Bilal, you forgot one thing. He frowned. What? I lifted my phone. It was recording. If you're still watching, subscribe, because the next part is where the trap snapped. Shots, and the people who thought they owned me finally realized I wasn't the same 11-year-old girl at the door. Bilal lunged for my phone, but he was a second too late. I had already sent the recording to Mr. Hargreaves on to a trusted colleague using the emergency shortcut I'd set up the day I left the hospital. Bilal's face twisted with rage. He grabbed my wrist. Delete it. I looked him dead in the eyes. You're finished. His grip tightened. You think a recording will save you? I smiled, small, steady. No, but the police will. His eyes widened slightly, just enough to show panic. Because here's what Bilal didn't know. I didn't come to that birthday, clueless. After Razia's revelation, I had already met Mr. Hargreaves privately. We'd planned for this exact scenario. I'd told him, if Bilal tries anything, I want it documented. So Mr. Hargreaves had advised me to do 3 things. Keep my phone recording whenever Bilal got serious. Share my live location with him. Have a silent SOS ready. While Bilal was yelling, my thumb pressed the SOS dot, and somewhere my location pinged like an alarm. Bilal's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then his face went even paler, because outside the car I saw headlights wash over the driveway. A vehicle pulled in, then another. Bilal hissed, What did you do? I tilted my head. I asked for help. There was a knock on the window. Bilal froze. 2 police officers stood outside. I turned towards them, voice shaking but clear. "Officer, I'm locked in the car. I'm not safe." Billow tried to speak. Both the officers' expressions hardened instantly. One officer ordered, "Unlock the doors." Billow hesitated. The officer's hand moved to his radio. "Now." Billow unlocked the car the moment the click sounded. I shoved the door open and stepped out, lungs desperate for air. My knees wobbled. But I stayed upright, because I wasn't going to laugh in front of him. Billa tried to laugh it off. "This is a misunderstanding. My wife is emotional after her accident." I held up my phone. "I have audio of him threatening me, and I have a lawyer who can verify attempted trust fraud." The officers separated us, and then, because Life Loves Drama Sana stepped outside too. Trembling, she looked at the police, then at me, and she said, quietly, "He's telling the truth. Billow planned it." He said, "Once she dies, the trust will release." The air went sharp. Bill snapped, "Shut up." But Sana didn't. Tears ran down her face. "He married me last month. He said you were already gone. He said you died in the crash." My chest tightened. "You're his new wife." Sana nodded, ashamed. "I didn't know you were alive till I saw you in the hospital." I panicked. The officers exchanged looks. Billow's mask cracked. His voice rose, frantic now. "This is ridiculous. She's lying." But lies collapse when too many people speak the truth at once. That night, Bilal was taken in for questioning. The fraud attempt, the threat, and the car inspection became one ugly file with his name stamped all over it. And then came the next bomb. Razia called me the following morning. "Come," she said. "We need to finish what Farah started." Went out in her study. She handed me a small box. Inside were letters, old, carefully kept, Farah's handwriting. My biological mother's voice. Speaking through paper. In the letters, Farah wrote about me as a baby, about my laugh, about my hands, about how she was afraid her husband's family would take me away if they found out I existed. So she made an arrangement. A woman, my mom, would raise me quietly, away from their reach. Money would be paid, a trust would be built, and, when I was grown, I would be told the truth. But the plan failed halfway. Farah died suddenly from illness. Razia grieved, but the family Billow's side smelt money. They found out I existed, and they decided I was the key. That's why my mom kicked me out at 11, because she'd been paid to keep me hidden. But when the pressure rose, she chose herself. Razia looked at me with something close to regret. "I should have found you sooner." I swallowed pain like it was medicine. "Why didn't you?" "Because I trusted the wrong people," she admitted. "Just like you did." A week later, Mr. Hargreaves confirmed what the police suspected. The brake line in my car had been tampered with, not a guaranteed conviction on its own, but with recordings, witness statements, and the attempted death documents. It became a strong case. I filed for divorce. I filed for a restraining order. And then I did the hardest thing. I confronted the woman who raised me, my mom. She opened her door and looked at me like I was still 11, like she could still control the story. "What do you want?" she said. I held up one of Farah's letters. "The truth?" Her face tightened. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just said, "You sold my childhood. You sold my name. And you threw me away when I became inconvenient." She swallowed. "I did what I had to do." "No," I said. "You did what you chose." And then I walked away. Because sometimes closure isn't an apology, it's reclaiming yourself. The trust was released 2 months later, after security checks and legal approvals. But the money didn't feel like winning. It felt like a receipt for everything I survived. I moved into a small, quiet flat. I started therapy. I hired a proper legal team. I donated part of the money to shelters for girls who get kicked out, young girls like the one I was. And slowly, I began to breathe like I wasn't waiting for the door to slam again. Now here's where I want your opinion. Did I do the right thing by involving the police and exposing everything if it destroyed an entire family's reputation? Or should I have handled it quietly? And if you were in my place, what would you do? Write it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you made it to the end, subscribe, because the next story I tell might be yours.